It is the end of an era. 3 years ago, the Steam Deck changed the way that we think about handheld PCs forever. And it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty awesome. And then they updated it with the Steam Deck OLED, and they took everything that I really liked about the Steam Deck and made it better. And when they did that, they got rid of 2 versions of the Steam Deck LCD. Well, that last version of the Steam Deck LCD is about to go away. And once stock runs out, it is going to be gone forever. I saw this over on Reddit, and people have found this over on Steam's website. Apparently, Valve has said that once this stock runs out, they're not making any more LCD Steam Decks. So if you are somebody who has been sitting on the fence trying to decide whether or not you want to buy a Steam Deck, now is probably the time to do so, because you're never going to get one this cheap again. And before we get into why I think Valve is ditching the LCD Steam Deck, I'm very curious, what Steam Decks are all of you using? Are you using an LCD Steam Deck? Are you using an OLED Steam Deck? Are you using the OLED Steam Deck that has like the matte finish on the screen, or are you using the one that has the glossy screen? Or maybe you're not using a Steam Deck at all. Maybe you are on the fence, you haven't picked one up, or maybe you have some other PC handheld. Let me know in the comments section down below that like button what you're using, because I'm just really curious if it tracks with what I'm thinking. Now, let's talk about why Valve is doing this. Instant Gaming is a place to get keys for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo games. They have regular deals. Right now, I'm seeing that they have Arc Raiders, which is on sale. It's normally $40 on Steam, and right now you can pick it up for $35 on Instant Gaming. LEGO Voyagers, which is currently up to win Best Family Game at the Game Awards, is $24 on Steam, and it's only $14.29 on Instant. If you buy a lot of games, you could save a lot of money in an instant by checking out instantgaming.com. Again, that's instantgaming.com. I think that there's quite a few reasons, and I'm going to start with RAM prices. We've seen recently the Rampocalypse. Somebody in my comment section called it that. If you don't know about the Rampocalypse, basically the price of memory has just absolutely exploded, over 500% more expensive recently in some regions. And it's because AI data centers are buying up huge swaths. I don't know if that's a word, but huge like batches of RAM, which means that there's less RAM for everybody else. And if there's less RAM, then there's higher demand, and that drives the price up. So RAM is getting really expensive. And for Valve, if they are trying to cut costs in some way without raising the price of the Steam Deck, then one of the smart things that they can do is get rid of the cheapest version of the Steam Deck, leave the other Steam Decks at the price that they are, and maybe that will make it a little more palatable for them to save on RAM. Another reason that I think that Valve might be interested in ditching the LCD Steam Deck is because everybody thinks that the OLED Steam Deck is so much better. When the OLED Steam Deck came out, I wouldn't have said you need to upgrade right away, but I would say that if you are in the market for a Steam Deck and you're trying to decide between the LCD Steam Deck and the OLED Steam Deck, yes, the OLED Steam Deck is more expensive, but that version of the Steam Deck is a big upgrade over the LCD Steam Deck. The screen is so much better. In fact, I would say that the LCD Steam Deck, the screen is the weakest part of the original Steam Deck. And that OLED deck is just so good looking. On top of that, it also consumes less energy, so the battery lasts longer, and Valve was able to squeeze a bigger battery in there because the LCD panel is thicker than the OLED panel, and that gave them more room to work with. So basically, once they brought out that OLED deck, everybody who was making recommendations to potential customers, people like me, we were always saying, well, you should probably go with the OLED deck because it's just a better experience. If you already have the LCD deck, then you're fine. You're not going to have any problems with that. And if you are price sensitive and you want to make sure that you're not spending too much, the LCD deck is still a really good system. But I'm wondering if everybody constantly recommending the OLED Steam Deck over the LCD deck has made it so that people are just way less interested, and Valve knows that they're not going to sell that many of them, and so now they're officially trying to get rid of them. But another reason that Valve might be interested in getting rid of the LCD Steam Deck is because basically it means that they have two production lines that they're running. They're running one for the LCD deck because it's a different build inside the frame of the system. And then they have the OLED one where the components are in slightly different spots. The thickness of the screen is different, and that means all of the different things that go into it, you can't just build the same thing on both production lines. And they can save a lot of money by shutting down one of those production lines, especially if that production line is making something that isn't super popular. So for them to shut down the LCD Steam Deck, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think the real reason as to why Valve is ditching the LCD Steam Deck, I think is something much more benign than everything that I've said. Although I do think all of those things that I said play a role into Valve's calculations as to why they may or may not want to continue manufacturing the LCD deck. But I think the real reason is that 3 years ago, when they started this, they probably bought so many screens, LCD screens. They bought those screens and now they're finally running out of them. And maybe at some point over the last 3 years, they bought more of those screens. But at this point, maybe they're thinking it doesn't make sense for us to continue to buy these screens when the OLED decks sell so much more than this, and they don't want to sit on inventory. That's the worst thing for somebody who's making a device, is to make that device and just have it sitting in a warehouse with nobody willing to buy it. So when you combine the fact that RAM prices are skyrocketing and Valve needs to find some way to reduce costs, and you combine that with the possibility that they could save some money by no longer manufacturing the LCD deck because they can shut down one of their production lines, and you add into that the fact that they've already sold through all of their they're just about ready to sell through all of the LCD screens that they have on hand, and the fact that everybody is constantly recommending that you get the OLED deck over the LCD deck, I think it makes a lot of sense for Valve to phase that out. So if you want to pick one up for yourself, like maybe you want to get a really cheap Steam Deck and then turn around and throw an M.2 drive in there, I'll leave a link down below, an affiliate link for an M.2 drive that will work in your Steam Deck. I think that makes a lot of sense, and you can save a lot of money right now instead of getting the OLED one. That said, if you're less price sensitive, get the OLED one, because it's awesome. But what do you guys think is the reason that Valve is ditching the LCD Steam Deck? Let me know in the comment section down below that like button. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. From the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. Thanks for watching and stay rad. Bye, everybody.